Om Namo Narayana, Om Namah Shivaya, Shiva Om, Shiva Hum, Om. Welcome to another Satsang with your host Chuck the Yogi from the Yogi Cave. First saying of this new year 2021, may it be better than 2020. Let us continue because we're getting close to finishing this pada. I'm excited about that. Let's get to it. So, where was we? 3.46. Rupa Lavanya Bala Vajra Sammana Natvani Kaya Sampat. Beauty, gracefulness, and adamant robustness constitute the perfection of the body. So, Patanjali is kind of alluding to some extent to what's known, or what was later known as internal alchemy. And you see a lot of that in different tantric traditions of yoga, but also Nath yoga, as well as in Taoism. They have both external as well as internal alchemy, which later found its way to Europe with everything that it entailed. So the understanding is that the perfection of these practices create a body that is ideally suited for life, something that doesn't necessarily fully depend on animal energy, animal food, things of that nature, which is why yogis are able to go up in a cave in the middle of nowhere and live off of next to nothing and survive in conditions that normal human beings wouldn't be able to endure. So Patanjali understood all this. He's just alluding to it, because you have to understand that a sutra is a very condensed packet of information. So I'm just trying to unpackage it to the extent that it fits this format. We can go on and on and on and on about this sutra alone, this one sutra, but I'm just going to leave it there. Anyway, 3.47. Grahana Svarupa Asmita Anvaya Artavatva Samyamad Indriya Yayaha. Through constraint on the process of perception, the own form, I amness, connectedness, and purposiveness gains mastery over the sense organs. So the process of perception is really important. This is why I created a model of consciousness that uses perception as one of its primary constituents. And I'll leave a link to that below. But Patanjali understood over 2,000 years ago the importance of perception. And not only that, but of oneself, of one's sense of self, and sense of connectedness between that self and everything else, and the sense of purposiveness. What is this purposiveness? The sense of purpose. Why are you driven to get up in the morning and do the things that you do? I mean, the yogis break down all of this stuff into its basic constituents in order to find a way out of the labyrinth that is this construct that we live in. So, but the process of perception is one of the keys to moving beyond the illusion of this construct and entering into that state called samadhi. Anyway, 3.48. Tato mano javitvam vikarana bhavaha pradana jayascha. Thence comes about fleetness of the mind, a state lacking sense organs, and a mastery over the matrix of nature. So finally, Patanjali is reaching the apex. Like, what is the point of all this, so to speak? And the point of all this is understanding the fleetness and the fickleness of the mind, as well as entering a state that seems to appear to be beyond mere sense organs, mere sense perception, or sense organ input. And mastery over the matrix of nature. And what is matrix? It's a Latin word which means mother. See, this construct is our mother. And we are in Mother's womb right now. This is our playground where we figure things out. And when we're ready, we move beyond the construct. But that is another lesson for another time. 3.49 Sattva Purusha Anyata Kyati Matrasya Sarva Bhava Adishtat Tritvam Sarva Jam Tritvam Cha. The yogin who has merely the vision of the distinction between the self and the sattva of consciousness gains supremacy over all states of existence and omniscience. So what does this mean? Well, it's twofold. There's more layers to it, but the first layer is this understanding of knowing the coincidence of opposites, coincidencia oppositorum as Jung would call it, between the self, the little self, and the big self with a capital S, right? That's part of it. And then the other part of it is, in order to achieve that, a yogi has to be able to sustain a sattvic state of consciousness. Why? Because the rajasic state of consciousness is consciousness of constant activity. Monkey branching from one thought or one action to the next. There's no time for this, right? And then the tamasic state of consciousness is a state of consciousness of torpor, right? So people that become addicted, for example, use substances in part in order to reach that state of torpor or tamasic state of consciousness in order to escape the rajasic state of consciousness, because their mind is going 1,000,000 miles an hour and they want to escape that, right? So they use these substances to do that. That's not the full or the extent of why people use substances, but in this case, many addicts particularly may use it for that reason, right? But so Patanjali is implicitly stating that in order to escape, so to speak, the matrix, it's really important to be in a constant state of a sattvic state of mind. So let's just leave it there. 3.50 Tad Vairagyat Apidosha Bija Kshaye Kavalyam. Through dissipation towards even this exalted vision, with the dwindling of the seeds of the defects, he achieves the aloneness of the power of seeing. So this aloneness, what does that mean? Well, it's not being solitude or being alone. It's the merger between the little self and the big self. This is what he's alluding to. And he's alluding to a state in where there's just this seeing, not this division between the seer and the seen, but a quantum entangled state where everything is coincident with each other. The yogi understands and perceives that unity, that underlying unity, the field that underlies all things. So that's what he's getting at. 3.51 Stani Upani Mantrane Sangha Smaya Akaranam Punar Anishta Prasangat. Upon the invitation of high-placed beings, he should give himself no cause for attachment or pride because of the renewed and undesired inclination for lower levels of existence. So, even in this exalted state, Patanjali is cautioning us to be careful with the greatest sin of them all, which is the sin of pride, because the higher one is, the lower one can fall as well. There's ups and then there's also downs. And so this is simply a cautionary tale in that regards. 3.52 Kshanatat kramayoho samyamad viveka jam janam. Through constraint on the moment of time and its sequence, he obtains the gnosis born of discernment. So what does this mean? So he's talking about kshana here, a moment. And as I probably stated before, and if I haven't said so, I will state it now, Patanjali understood that reality is based on discrete moments in time-space. It is not continuous. We have, or we're under this illusion that time-space is continuous, but it is not. Patanjali understood this. The early Buddhists and yogis understood this. So he's being very explicit as to what this means. Understanding of that moment, those constraints, those moments of perception, and its sequence, the gnosis, he understands or gains gnosis, which simply means understanding, to know, right? Because samadhi is a state of constant, uninterrupted knowing. Not believing, not thinking, knowing, which is why my Zen master Yoshu Sasaki Roshi always said, no thinking, right? Because there has to be knowing. And a Buddha is someone who's awake. That's what it means. That's what Buddhi means, to be awake, to know. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here. And we're almost done with this pada. So we got one more to go. Om Namo Narayana, Om Namah Shivaya, Shiva Om, Shiva Hum, Jai Ma, Jai Mahakal. Till next time.